United Planners, an RIA and broker-dealer structured as a limited partnership, providing partners and associates an unfettered program to conduct fee-based and commission business for over 30 years. Advisors are offered the flexibility of being independent with a broad choice of custodians under the firm RIA or their own independent RIA. Welcome to The Healthy Advisor, a podcast from wealthmanagement.com focused on advisors' personal well-being and healing. I'm Diana Britton, managing editor of wealthmanagement.com, and in this podcast we explore some of the struggles and personal development issues facing advisors and financial services professionals, and how to get to a place of healing for mind, body, and spirit. Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Healthy Advisor podcast, and thanks for joining us. As you may know, this is the podcast focused on financial advisor, health, and wellness, and today's guest is right at the intersection of those things. Her name is Jess Bost. She's the Vice President of Brand Partnerships at Alpha Architect and also runs her own financial planning practice under the firm's ADV. She's been in the wealth management industry for about 4 years. But prior to that, she was a CrossFit coach and personal trainer, and she still coaches CrossFit on a part-time basis and plans to take the CrossFit Level 3 certification in the next year or two. In 2017, Jess won a national title in Olympic weightlifting and qualified for the 2018 Masters Pan Am, which is a weightlifting championship. This woman is ripped and incredibly strong inside and out. Jess, thank you so much for being here.
I think, well, first of all, thank you, and you're very welcome. I think that might have been the most flattering introduction that anyone has ever given me. So, thank you. Wow, that is,
all right.
Yes,
well,
thank you for that. Yeah, I'm really happy to be here. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this. So, my intention in having Jess on the podcast is not to convince everyone to go out and do CrossFit, although, if some listeners do go out, that would be great. But Jess really sits at the intersection of finance and fitness, and I thought she could share her story about how fitness has helped her to be a better individual and also a better advisor, right? So, Jess, I just wanted to start off, what's the most weight you've ever lifted?
Wow. First of all, disclaimer, I do not lift this heavy now. My body is, it ages. I don't know if y'all if you realize that, but we get older and things just don't work the same. And I consider myself a very fit, almost 40-year-old, but I am not 32. Which is when I was lifting at, those weight, or 32 to 35 is when I was lifting the heaviest. So 35 is when I qualified for the Pan Ams, and it was in kilograms there, but roughly translated to my heaviest was a 215 clean and jerk. And and then a 170 pound snatch. So, you'll have to go look those movements up. It's too much for me to explain them, especially over audio. But yeah, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Loved lifting, and yeah, I miss it. But it's a good balance now. I still lift pretty heavy, just not that heavy.
Yeah, I have trouble lifting my 40-pound daughter, so that's impressive.
Me too now. That's a totally different kind of weight distribution.
Yeah, well, and your daughters are older now, right? So, All right, well, tell us a little bit about your background and your journey into financial services.
Awesome, yeah, sure. You mentioned I was a CrossFit coach before I came over to finance, and my passions were there. Prior to that, my undergrad is in psychology. And so prior to coming into CrossFit, I worked in a couple of different fields related to psychology, children's ministry, actually, when I first got out of college. And then I rolled into working with foster students or foster care children helping them find placement. And then one of my absolute most favorite things that I've ever done was I worked with a company that provides applied behavior analysis services to kids with autism and developmental delays. And I was with them for about 3 years before I had my first child. And during that time, I learned a lot about myself and about what I loved. And so when I moved from that into CrossFit, I was able to carry over just a lot of those things, a lot of those concepts into CrossFit. And then at the end, when I transitioned from full-time CrossFit into full-time finance, I carried those concepts over. And a lot of them were just how to work with people, how to help them get from where they are to where they wanted to be. And, so those kind of just matched over. But I can't say that I loved any one of them more than I loved the other. It was just at that point in time in my life, it was a great fit for my, for balance in life and where I was at. And I feel really fortunate that I've been able to kind of piece that together and find my passion and all of those things along the way. I don't ever see myself leaving finance. I feel like all of it has really built to this point in my life and career. And I just love what I'm doing now. So, but yeah, it was one of those things that it was the opportunity in the right moment, and it fit with my family and balance that I was looking for. And I was passionate about it. So
about finance. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, just every one of them. Yeah. Along the way. So they don't really connect.
What were some of those
outside of
Yeah,
that?
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I was just saying they don't really have a true connection point outside of that. Is really something that I just found in all of them that was good for me.
What were some of those concepts that you kind of carried throughout? I know that you were telling me that, you learned that you kind of can achieve something bigger just by taking small steps at a time, right? And that's something that you kind of carried throughout.
Yeah. That concept was first introduced to me through working with children with autism. And it was the idea that they are capable of so much. We look at them, and yes, there's a disability there, but the possibility for them is much greater sometimes than we can envision, and really for them, especially greater than they can envision. And to go from one particular set of skills to something that's much more complex for them, the only thing that you really need to be able to do and do well is break it down into an almost infinite amount of steps. And so if you're teaching a child to feed themselves, and right now they only are using their fingers to do that, and you want them to be able to use forks and spoons and knives appropriately, there are a lot of moments and a lot of steps that you can break that down into, where you can provide that reinforcement, positive reinforcement, and you can also try to eliminate some of the behaviors that are not helping. And so that's what applied behavior analysis is all about. It's breaking down and then analyzing it and then applying. So that carried over into CrossFit, because I had a client that would look at me and be like, I am never jumping on top of that box. That is too high for me. Or I am never going to do a pull-up. That is just not possible for me. And me having this background of, okay, but I want to meet you there. I know that is your belief system right now, but if you'll trust me and you're willing to be interested in doing it, even if you don't believe you can do it, then I know the steps. I can break it down for you, and we can continue to break it down until you feel like the next step is possible and doable. And then we'll go to the next step, and then we'll go to the next step. And that was really effective for clients in moving. And it's not specific to CrossFit, but it took something very intimidating like CrossFit and made it doable for, a 75-year-old woman. And what it allowed her to do was to be able to get up and down with her grandson, who was tiny and played on the floor, and then pick him up and carry him to the back pasture where they got to feed her horses together. So it opened and unlocked life for her in a way that she never dreamed possible. And so that overlap there with life is, kind of, that's it, all those things tumbled into finance, right? Because when you can impact someone's life financially, you can open up so much opportunity for them, so many choices for them. And it on an even, I don't know if it's a greater scale, but different scale than even fitness. And so I feel so fortunate to still be able to do a little bit of that CrossFit coaching and impact that realm of life. And then now in finance and impact, the financial and the wealth side of life for people. Like, I'm living my dream. I love it. So yeah, that's kind of how they connected for me in a really meaningful way.
Yeah, that makes total sense. A little bit of background about CrossFit. CrossFit, which stands for Cross-Discipline Fitness, because I didn't know much about it, before I talked to you. It was founded by Greg Glassman and Lauren Janai in 2000. They opened a gym in Santa Cruz, California, and posted their workouts on the internet for their clients. And, these workouts were quickly adopted by individuals in the police, military, firefighting services. The first affiliated gym to form was CrossFit North in Seattle, when Glassman's internet postings were used by those who wanted to officially incorporate his workouts into their training regimen in 2002. Glassman then began to develop a curriculum to train and certify coaches and gym owners using the methodology. There were 13 gyms by 2005, and in 2016, there were more than 13,000. By 2020, there were approximately 15,000 CrossFit affiliates around the world. There may be more by now. CrossFit is a strength, conditioning, and overall fitness program consisting mainly of a mix of aerobic exercise, calisthenics, and Olympic weightlifting. CrossFit described its strength and conditioning program as constantly varied functional movements executed at high intensity across broad time and modal domains. They use equipment from multiple disciplines, including barbells, dumbbells, gymnastics rings, rope climbs, pull-up bars, jump ropes, kettlebells, medicine balls, plyo boxes, resistance bands, rowing machines, and various mats. I know that's something that you said you really liked about it, is that it's very, you're not doing the same thing every day. There's so many different movements. Tell us about how you got into CrossFit.
I absolutely will. And actually, I love that description of CrossFit, and the constantly varied functional movement is another piece of CrossFit that I feel like applies to finance, because there's so many different ways that you can approach your finances, right? And some of the most impactful ways is to be able to do all of it pretty well. You don't have to be a master at anything. And so that's kind of the idea behind CrossFit, is that we're not trying to create the best sprinter in the world. We're not trying to create the person who can deadlift the most in the world. We're trying to create a human that can do all of these things mostly well and move correctly and functionally throughout them, so that they can do. So like that 75-year-old grandmother, right, that I described earlier, the ability for her to go back into her world and take the things that she's learned and apply them and improve her life measurably. That is what I love so much about CrossFit. And the cool thing is that, people get into CrossFit in so many different ways. For me personally, it was a moment in life where I was in a crisis. And there's a lot of people who find CrossFit that way. My crisis was that I had recently experienced a miscarriage, and it was traumatic for me because we already had a child, and I had no problems with that pregnancy, had no issues getting pregnant. It was completely out of the blue, and I was 20 weeks along. So the impact of that for me, I had my miscarriage in a hospital. I went in and found out that there wasn't a heartbeat. And so it was an induced labor. And so The really beautiful side of that thing is that, I got to hold my baby, 10 fingers, 10 toes, perfect little face. It's a moment that a lot of, moms and parents don't get to experience. And I'm so grateful for that moment. On the flip side.
That's incredible that you have that perspective on it. Yeah.
Yeah. The flip side of that is that those moments, those memories, those images live with me forever. And they were really present afterwards. And so CrossFit was a place where I went and I fought those demons, right? Everything that the dark side could throw at me to say, this is why you didn't end up, continuing, carrying that child to full term. I went in there and I picked that barbell up, or I threw that kettlebell around, whatever it was. I did it as hard as I could. I went to the darkest place I could, and I fought my demons in that place. And the intensity side of CrossFit that really tends to intimidate people, it was absolutely perfect for me. And the cool thing, when you go to that place, you don't want to go to the same kind of place every single day. So the fact that it's varied for me, was like, okay, well, which way am I going to get to the dark place today? So that part of it kept it, being something that, the ever-changing kind of varied part of it gave me a challenge. And the challenge actually ended up being a positive, like it created positive effects. And so for me, CrossFit, found it, bad place, and it just in a trauma part of my life, and it was a bridge to a much better place for me.
Yeah. How did you also lost like 40 pounds or something, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So, I was depressed. I was, eating my feelings, drinking my feelings, whatever I needed to do to get over the feelings. And so I was just probably in one of the most unhealthy places of my life, not because I was for not any other reason than I was just coping. So yeah, when I started CrossFit, I was about 40 pounds overweight and had not been taking care of myself. And I lost all of the weight, and then I gained it back in muscle, like not all of it back, but like about 20 pounds back in muscle. So it became something too that actually helped me create the habits of staying fit, beyond that point. So that is very positive in that way as well, teaching me to be strong and figuring out what my body could do in a positive way.
Thank you so much for sharing that. How did you, sort of find healing emotionally after the miscarriage?
Part of my story is that I actually had another miscarriage before we had our second daughter that's with us today. So that experience, I didn't realize it, was one that I was going to go through again. Now I wasn't as far along. I was, I think, 12 or 13 weeks with that one. So still far enough along that we were telling people, and we thought we had got over the hump, thought there was going to be no problems. The doctor said, baby looks great. Started telling people, and then it was like the same scenario all over again. And come to find out, I had some pregnancy complications that we didn't find out until blood work later. So the fact that I had CrossFit when I went through that second miscarriage saved me from, I don't know what the other alternative would have been, but if I had, not found something positive that helped me, find my place in this world, and something that I could do that was starting to not just benefit me, but also give me a platform for other women in their trauma to help them along their healing path. That if I hadn't had that when I went through this again, I don't know where I would be today, but it provided a place for me to go. Like I said, I went there for a long time and just went to the dark place and just battled my demons. And I would just go back in and do the same thing over and over again. And eventually out of that, I became strong and fit And then it became more fun. So then there's not as many times that I'm going there because I'm angry. I'm going there because I love it. And it just that same channel, it's the same channel, right? That anger and passion. And so eventually, because it is such a positively reinforcing thing in and of itself, exercise that is, not necessarily CrossFit, but exercise, it helped me. Like that was a place where I could just kind of climb out of that dark place a little bit at a time into something that was all around good. And so, yeah, that it's not for everybody, but it was perfect for me.
Yeah, that's great. So I know, Jess, you whether you think you are or not, you sort of become an advocate in the financial services industry for fitness and weightlifting. How do you encourage others, and why did you start doing that? I know you're a little bit modest about it, but
Yeah, I mean, I am. It probably doesn't look like that from the outside. I don't know. I try not to spend a whole lot of time intentionally thinking about what other people are thinking of me because it comes so naturally anyway. But I will say I hesitate every time I go to put something out on social media to think about how it comes across. I'm never trying to garner the responses of, wow, you're so fit, wow, you're so strong, wow, you're amazing. It's not that I don't have an ego. Everyone does. But the thing that brings me the most joy and like that feeds my ego is wow, you inspire me because I never believed I could do that. Like that's the thing that when somebody says that to me, I am all in. It is because I want so badly for people to know, and especially for women to know that they can be strong. The feeling for me that going from a place of I'm lost, I'm depressed, I don't know how I'm going to manage, I don't know what this looks like from here, to I'm strong, I'm fit, I'm in control of the way that my body moves and the way that I feel in it, and I can do anything that I want to with it, like 180 degrees. Never want to be that other person again. Never feel like I have even, the temptation to be that person again because I know how to control, my fitness now. I want that for other people. I want to give that drug away as much as possible. So when somebody says, wow, and Laura Latourette, one of my favorite people in all of FinTwit, lives in Georgia. Met her through Twitter. We met up in person, and it was just the greatest thing. She said that the other day.
She has a farm, right? Or
she does, yeah, and llamas.
Yeah, she's awesome.
She's amazing. And so she said something like that on my feed the other day about a video. She's like, "Wow, you inspire me so much," and it's that if I'm going for anything, it's that because I just want people to know that it's possible. And that happens in the financial world as well. People going from my family was never wealthy. How do I even start? Can I even build wealth if I'm not coming from wealth? The concepts of that really map over very, very easily. And so I lean into that. And that's my message that I'm trying to communicate to this world is it is possible if you want it. And if you want it but don't see it, then the bridge over that is probably experiencing something that you've never experienced before, and might start with, getting outside of your comfort zone and finding a coach or whatever it is, financial advisor, doing something that you haven't done before, and continuing to try those things until you figure out how to get from where you are to where you want to be. So that's why I started it. Well, I started it just because I was proud of myself. I'm like, wow, mom, friends, family, whatever, look, this is cool. And then it was other people saying, wow, that really encourages me. I never knew I could do that. Reaching out for, just support and me going, okay, this is something that I can use to do something that really means a lot to me. So, yeah.
Yeah, it really is inspiring. So, in this industry, being a financial advisor is a very stressful job and, can take a toll on a person's body. And, you and I talked about just the struggles of, particularly younger advisors, next gen and advisors new to this industry. And, the industry's changing so much and there's pressure on fees and pressure to reinvent yourself and to be relevant to the client. What do you see is the need for fitness in this industry?
Well, there's the chemical science that exercise does better than any drug on the planet. And, it maps over to the ability to sleep. If you are in a place of being fit, you notice the difference between eating well and not eating well. You notice the difference between sleeping well and not sleeping well. You notice the difference between drinking and not drinking. Like all of those things have an impact on your fitness. And so it's almost this like accountability system all in and of itself, that if you found something that you love doing and you've achieved even some measure of fitness in it, those things start to impact your ability to continue to do that thing or to do it well. And the interaction of that almost kind of keeps you going in it. And then that whole, chemical response of doing all of those things makes you a healthier person and you can do your job better. So like that is just one side of it. The other side of it, and what I have found in CrossFit specifically, is the community side of it. So, I'm there at 5-6 days out of the week. And every time I'm there, I'm in a class of people. And in that class of people, we are all at some level, however we're modifying the workout, we're all in it together. We are all working on that 20-minute time frame to get as many rounds as possible of pull-ups and push-ups and air squats as we possibly can. And everybody's doing that at their level, at their intensity. And that feeling of I'm not alone in this world is, it's everything, right? We were born for community. So the thing about that type of community is that you're working hard together, that you're accomplishing something, and then the high fives at the end, and the fact that your coach is going around going, "Great job!" Like I've had people tell me that they don't get the kind of encouragement that I provided them during the class. They don't get that anywhere else in their world. Never anywhere else that they don't go anywhere else where somebody says, "Man, you're doing awesome," or "I'm so proud to see that you've worked on this," or "Great job today," or fist bump, or whatever it is. Like they've told me, many people have told me, I don't get that anywhere else. That is a big part of why I come here. Is just, I feel good leaving because I've been encouraged, and I feel good leaving because now my body's been, sweating for an hour. So again, CrossFit is not for everybody. There are so many things that you can do that provide that kind of support system. But if you don't have that anywhere else in your life, then you like a group fitness class like that is where where you need to be. And I don't use need lightly. So I think I feel really strongly about that aspect of it being healthy for financial advisors and people that are in stressful jobs, and in the way that we sit around all day. Again, all that's the science, body, chemical side, but there's so much more. There's this psychological, emotional need that's being filled by the community there.
Yeah, that's a great point, and that's so powerful. Well, I'm afraid we're just about out of time, but I'd like to thank my guest, Jess Bost, for being on the podcast and for sharing your story with us, Jess. It's just been great. It's been, and you're inspiring. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I love sharing my story, and like I said, I do it because I love seeing people just even imagine a flicker of a moment where they think, "Man, could I do that too? She did it. Could I do that too?" And the answer is yes, absolutely. If you want it, you can. And so yeah, hopefully somebody's hearing this today that had that moment of inspiration.
Yeah, I mean, you've inspired me. If you'd like to reach out to Jess, you can reach her at jb@alphaarchitect.com, and we'll put this information in the show notes as well. If you yourself have a struggle, or you wish to share your experiences and help others in similar situations, please feel free to reach out to me at diana.britton@informa.com. I'd like to thank you for listening to The Healthy Advisor. If you've not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This is Diana Britton reminding you that where there's healing, there is hope. We'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to The Healthy Advisor, a podcast focused on advisors' personal well-being and healing. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of wealthmanagement.com. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional advice. Always seek the advice of your healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding your particular situation. United Planners, an RIA and broker-dealer structured as a limited partnership, providing partners and associates an unfettered program to conduct fee-based and commission business for over 30 years. Advisors are offered the flexibility of being independent with a broad choice of custodians under the firm RIA or their own independent RIA.